These would be the things you'll learn during this session. Enlist the key features of morphology of bryophytes, illustrate the life cycle of bryophytes, write the classification of bryophytes, compare and contrast liverworts and mosses, identify representative organisms belonging to the division bryophytes. But before we can proceed to the lesson topics, you should be able to differentiate between haploid and diploid, recall what are plant tissues, describe the anatomy of stem, root and leaves, and discuss asexual and sexual reproductive strategies. First, some general characteristics. Bryophyta are generally found in damp, humid and shaded land areas. They are known as amphibians of plant kingdom because they live on land, but they need water for sexual reproduction. So their life cycle will not be complete in absence of water. So they have to stay on land which is close to water and is usually moist. The vegetative characters of bryophytes are: the body is thallus-like, that is bag-like, but it is more differentiated than in the previous group that we studied, that is algae. The body may remain prostrate, that is lying down on the surface of ground, or it can be erect. It is attached to substratum by root-like rhizoids. I say root-like because these are not true roots. They are similar in appearance to roots. They also do not have true stem or true leaves. When we say the word true, it means that if you cut the stem, root or leaves, they will have a specific organization of tissues inside, which you have studied in your previous classes. If we are saying not true, it means that those anatomical characters, the specific organization of epidermis, cortex and vascular bundles is not present in these. The main plant body is gametophyte. Now the most important aspect of bryophytes and the groups hereafter is their amazing reproductive cycle. In fact, based on modes of reproduction, these plants exhibit two types of body forms, gametophyte and sporophyte. In Bryophyta, the main plant body is gametophyte and this gametophyte is haploid. It reproduces through gametes, performs sexual reproduction. The male sex organ in these gametophytes is antheridium, which produces biflagellate anthrozoids. These are the male gametes. And the female sex organ is known as archegonium, which produces one egg cell. Now, biflagellate anthrozoids have to reach the egg cell for fertilization, and the agent which carries them is water, and that is why water is essential for reproduction in bryophytes. Fertilization is internal. The egg cell is fertilized inside the archegonium and a diploid 2N zygote is formed. Now, the zygote develops into sporophyte, which is of course diploid. This sporophyte remains attached to and is dependent upon the parent gametophyte. So the gametophyte is the main plant body. The sporophyte reproduces through spores, that means it performs asexual reproduction. During spore formation, meiosis occurs, and this meiosis leads to formation of haploid spores, and these spores develop into gametophyte, and thus we get the main plant body again. Now a quick review of the life cycle. Let's start with the gametophyte, because gametophyte here is the main plant body. So gametophyte will produce the male sex organ or the antheridium and the female sex organ, that is archegonium. Gametophyte is haploid, so these two organs are also haploid. The antheridium will produce the male gamete or anthrozoids, which are haploid, and the archegonium will produce the egg. Anthrozoids will reach the egg through water with the help of water, and fertilization will occur to form a diploid zygote, and thus the diploid stage of life cycle starts. This zygote will develop into the sporophyte. Now we just studied that sporophyte is dependent and attached to the gametophyte. It is not independent. The sporophyte reproduces through spores, and during the formation of spores, meiosis or reduction division takes place so that the spores formed are haploid, and these spores will give rise to a haploid gametophyte. Now, how are bryophytes beneficial to us? The first importance is that they are food for herbaceous mammals and birds. Sphagnum, a moss, provides peat, and this peat used to be a very important fuel in early days, similar to coal. Bryophytes are used as packing material for living things. For example, if we have to transport a plant, bryophytes are used for packing the root of the plant so that the root gets constant supply of water. This is because the bryophytes have the capacity to store water. Ecological significance: bryophytes along with lichens are responsible for decomposing rocks. So decomposition of rocks produces soil, and thus barren area is converted into a land which is suitable for growing other plants, suitable for vegetation. These form a dense mat on the soil, and thus they prevent soil erosion and reduce the erosive effect of rain. Now, Bryophyta are divided into two subdivisions, liverworts and mosses. The common examples of liverworts are Marchantia, and of mosses, Funaria, Polytrichum and Sphagnum. Now, first we'll study a little bit about liverworts. Liverworts have the main plant body gametophyte, and this gametophyte is thallus-like or undifferentiated. It lies dorsiventral on the surface, that is prostrate on the surface. It may have leaf-like structures. Asexual reproduction is through gemma or gemma cups. Sexual reproduction, as we just studied, is through anthrozoids and egg cell. The male and female sex organs are present on the same thallus, so liverworts are homothallic. The zygote formed will give rise to a diploid sporophyte, which is dependent upon the parent gametophyte, and this sporophyte is differentiated into foot, seta and capsules. This sporophyte will form haploid spores after reduction division, and these spores will germinate to form independent gametophyte. So the gametophyte is reclaimed back. Now these are the two thallus of Marchantia, the female thallus and the male thallus. You can see the female thallus bears the archegoniophore, which has the archegonium at the top, and the male thallus has the antheridiophore with the antheridium at the top. Now you can also see the gemma cup here and the root-like structures known as rhizoids. The second group is mosses. The gametophyte of mosses, this is the main phase of life cycle, and it reproduces through gametes. You must remember that gametophyte is haploid. It has two gametophytic stages. The first stage is known as the protonema, which develops from the spore. So spore on germination immediately forms the stage known as protonema. This is a creeping green filamentous and branched structure. Now this protonema has two sub-stages. First the primary protonema is formed, and from primary protonema the secondary protonema is formed. The second stage is the leafy stage. This develops from secondary protonema as a lateral part. Now this leafy stage is known as leafy stage because it has leaf-like, stem-like and root-like structures. Again, these are not true root, true stem or true leaf because their anatomy is not similar to the true roots, stems or leaves. Now these leafy structures are spirally arranged and the root-like rhizoids are multicellular and branched. This gametophyte has to reproduce sexually, so it bears sex organs. Now here is the two examples of mosses. Funaria. This diagram is very important. You can see the sporophyte and gametophyte in the same. Gametophyte has the main axis and rhizoids and the spirally arranged leaves. The sporophyte is attached on the gametophyte and it has the foot, seta and capsule. Similarly, in the sphagnum, you can see the antheridial branch and the archegonial branch, which means this is the gametophyte. Now the reproduction in mosses. Vegetative reproduction occurs through fragmentation and budding in secondary protonema. Sexual reproduction in the gametophytic phase of life cycle. You know, the male sex organs are known as antheridia and the female sex organs are known as archegonia, and both of these are born on the apex of the leafy shoots. The zygote formed is diploid and it develops into a diploid sporophyte. The sporophyte of moss is diploid and it has three parts: the foot, seta and capsule. Now the capsule is the structure which bears spores and these spores are formed after meiosis. So you can see the sporophyte is diploid but the spores formed are haploid. Now once the spores are formed, they have to be dispersed. So the sporophyte has an elaborate mechanism to ensure that spores are dispersed far. Now a quick recapitulation of the lesson. Now let's start to solve a few questions to check our understanding of this session. Now here are a few questions. Try solving them after you are confident that you have understood the video. In case you have any doubts, you can watch the video again or drop a comment. We'll discuss the answers.